Yeah, guy. Yeah, friggin' guy, David. Yeah, guy. It's Thursday morning. It's November 9th. I'm trying to catch up on my surf information for the week. I've been uh busy with some other stuff, but man, it looks like a busy week of surf here this week. David, first of all, welcome to the show. Welcome to Spit.
Thank you. Great to see you. Thanks for taking time to do it. I've got a full show outlined, so you can just sit back and give me three hot takes on each topic if you'd like.
Okie dokie. You
They
putting me
have to
on the
be
spot, are you?
they have to be hot. No
Right.
cold takes.
Okay.
Just to kick off though, I do have a couple of things I want to touch on, feedback from previous shows. And also, Surfing World Magazine issue number 421 just landed here in my home. Sean Doherty sends me a couple of boxes of these every issue and to make available to anybody in the United States. So it's just kind of I'm the distributor essentially for Surfing World Magazine. So if anybody wants that, then grab it on surfsplendorpodcast.com on the website. We do it at cost, $20 a mag, and we'll ship it to you. If you live outside of the US, you should order directly on Surfing World's website. But for anybody in the US, this is a great way to be able to get a magazine without paying shipping from Australia, essentially.
Let me ask you this, because as you mentioned this, I think to myself, one of the coolest things when you and I were growing up surfing, I was in the 80s, you were in the 90s, was getting your hands on an Australian surf magazine or a Brazilian surf magazine or any surf magazine that wasn't sort of Orange County, North America centric, because you got to open it up and you got to really like start to understand the culture of Australia. You got to understand the different regions, the different groups, which surfers were from which area, how their culture sort of not only evolved, but how it is now, how it is in the contemporary setting. And I think that that's still a fascinating thing because this social media landscape that we're in, everything's homogenized. Like they just kind of they expect us to understand that, you know, north of Noosa is this insane, like barren, gorgeous, super hot Queensland area that no one knows about, you know, that like, you know what I mean? Like it's just sort of like, oh, you mean you don't know that? And
Yeah,
I'm raising my hand. I'm saying I don't, and I think there's a lot of people that don't. And the best way to learn about that stuff is through a print magazine that's going to dive deep. You know what I mean? Like social media is too. It's just kind of it's so thin and preliminary and top layer that a young surfer doesn't get to understand or doesn't get to the excitement of understanding the depth of culture in Australia.
totally agree. Yeah, the deeper dive, the thin versus deep is accurate, I would say. Um, and long form writing allows you to do that. And Surfing World always has one kind of they're always glancing back at history as well. You know, they are interviewing, like in this magazine, Ethan Ewing, for example. So there are kind of current, modern, but they're always with a glance back towards what came before. So there's
Yeah,
also rites of passage that you go through with the magazines that you don't go through on social media.
super important. And my tip of the cap to Sean and the crew that are putting out that wonderful magazine,
Yeah,
Surf Life.
Sean and John Frank are committed to it, and again, it's a labor of love more than anything. There's advertising, of course, in the magazine that covers kind of uh, the costs of paying writers and photographers, which is also an important detail that's going away without with everything kind of being available for free on social media. So the whole model's changing, but this still has absolute value. And it's great to see that there's people who every time we bring these in, the same people are ordering it, and I'm shipping copies out to them all across the US. So if you're interested, Surfing World Mag, surfsplendorpodcast.com, go to the shop. It's there.
Do it.
Feedback. Listener said, hey, I had a great trip to Bali and Sumatra. Came home feeling disoriented when I got picked up at the airport late Wednesday. Somebody checks in on me the next day. Same buddy checks in on me next day, comes back Friday morning and finds me passed out on the floor. Ambulance to the hospital, 12-day stay, staph infection, fever, 104 degrees, didn't know where I was, who I was. I had about 3 days of heavy dose antibiotics for a 12-day stay. Um, was talking was taking leg below the knee where the infection took hold. Sorry, this is all one long run-on sentence that this listener sent me, but essentially he got staph infection and ended up in the hospital for 3 days. He's back to about 85%, but there's still swelling and discoloration in the leg, all from a small cut between the toes that I cleaned and was all healed up before leaving Indo. So can't thank my buddy enough and the doctors and nurses at UCSD that got me back. So I wanted to read this just kind of as a PSA to listeners. Indo, or Bali and Sumatra trip, he got a small cut in between the toes, didn't think it was a big deal, fully cleaned it, fully healed, and then gets home, finds himself passed, or a buddy finds him passed out on the floor and spends days in the hospital.
Yeah, look, that's gnarly. It's a tale of what's the word I'm looking for?
Tale, I don't know, cautionary tale. How's that?
That's what I was looking for. Cautionary tale. What we do know sounds like the infection was already in his bloodstream. The injury itself healed up, looked good, but this thing was floating around in his blood. And so anytime, and I know this guy did this, but anytime you get a cut out there or anywhere, frankly, clean it up, man. Staph is a serious deal, very dangerous.
Yeah, no joke. Well, the reason why he wrote it was in reference to our last show's conversation about not surfing as well as he once did. He said spit was hitting close to home, as I have not been back in the surf and I've kind of lost some of the stoke and I don't understand why. I'm getting back at it little at a time and not knowing or knowing that I won't be at the level that I was 6 months ago. He also just turned 66 in August, and this incident has him feeling like he's 66. So adios and aloha from George.
Well, George, you know what? Good for you, dude, for keeping at it. Because as George knows, and all of our listeners know, being in the ocean, no matter how you get in, is super important to just our mental outlook, our spiritual outlook on life. You know, like there's something about it. We mention it all the time. I know it's cliche, but being in the water is important, you know, like on a bunch of different reasons, for a bunch of different reasons. And I'm stoked that at 66, he's out there surfing and he's inspiring me. And so stay with it, stay at it, and just know that it's where you're supposed to be.
It really is. Can't overstate it, actually. The other thing that I wanted to bring up to you was you were talking about, we were talking about the Freedom Force, the new qualifiers for the CT.
Oh yeah.
And you were talking about
Freedom Force.
And you were talking about individualism in the US and how that seems to be different than, Brazilian camaraderie, essentially. I was watching the new film, the McGillivray film called Big Wave Guardians. Have you seen that yet?
No, where is it? Where is it playing?
I saw it as part of the jury for the Florida Surf Film Festival, so I don't think it's actually public yet, but it will be.
I interviewed Marty Hoffman about this last year and a half ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to see that. Should I see it?
Absolutely. It's fantastic. Yeah. And it does, by the way, this is not what I was going to talk about, but it does a lot of what you were saying you want to see. Like Shane Dorian's Ride. Let's do a little mini series where we individually, unpack individual important rides in history with the photographers and everybody in the water, kind of the way that Stab is doing with the best surfing I've ever seen. But those are maybe full sessions. Let's just do isolated one individual rides. This film actually does that with a number of different rides, and they're mainly centered around wipeouts because the film is about lifeguards, big wave guardians. So it'll, talk to Mikey Red, who had that wipeout at Pipeline where he almost died. And they really get into the details about what went wrong on that wave, but it's more centered around, of course, the life-saving efforts. But so yeah, when the film comes out, absolutely everybody should see it. We'll talk about it here, I guess, on the show more. It's very good. But Brian Kailana was talking about how in Hawaii, surfing is a community activity. Like when you were saying Americans have more individualism, you're right. And we're talking about mainland America, of course, in that conversation. But when he said surfing is a community activity in Hawaii, I'm like, man, that's accurate, and it is interesting how the different role that surfing plays essentially in different countries. But yeah, when he was talking about it as it relates to their community, their life-saving efforts, because when something like that happens, basically people stop surfing, like clear the water. They don't intentionally clear the water, but everybody in the water rushes to help the person, and then even gets out of the water to see how things end up,
Yeah. So I guess what comes to mind for me is that community ethos certainly is missing here on the mainland. And the other thing that jumped into my head is the concept of localism. And like localism to me, in its grossest form, is more of a North American phenomenon. It's more of a, kind of hoarding of the resources. Where I think in Hawaii, and please, listeners, chime in if I'm going off base here, but I would suggest to you that in Hawaii, it's not localism in that sort of individual, I want mine. It's more like territorialism, more like, hey, this is ours as the community. You're not allowed to come in and impose your so-called individualism on this community thing. And so the thing that they're protecting is the community, rather, whereas here, I think in North America, the thing that we're trying to protect is me getting mine.
That's very interesting. Yeah, because you're right. Localism does exist in everywhere that surfing exists, but you're totally right, is that the mentality behind it is very, very different. I wonder you've, I think, stated correctly what it's like in Hawaii and California or the mainland, but would it be like, how would you define it for Australia?
I imagine it's very similar to North America mainland. It's very much like, this is for me. I'm going to get what's mine. Everyone else get out of my way. And you know what I mean? It's not as community based. And I think a lot of that has to do with just the history of Polynesia, the history of Hawaii itself, what happened when the United States came over there and basically just took Hawaii. And there's a real sense of, hey, man, they're taking a lot from us. They're not going to take this. This is like, this is us going surfing. Like, you're not taking this. This is truly Hawaiian. There's no way that the, sort of American colonial hegemony is going to be able to infiltrate this aspect of our culture. Whereas I think in Australia and in North America, and probably most of the other places around the world, save perhaps Tahiti or other Polynesian islands, it's more of like an individual sort of selfishness.
Yeah. Fascinating. Never thought of it through that lens before, but it also makes sense why there's so much confusion in the water when people travel and they don't understand the etiquettes, is because the way that you behave in one place isn't the same. I mean, there are certain rules if you respect other people, I think then that's universally appreciated, and that's the right step for the right first foot forward. But there is still so much nuance beyond that creates confusion.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, it's interesting, the whole thing, because I do think that part of it too is, well, for instance, when I'm in Hawaii, what I've noticed about true Hawaiians is that they're not stressed out about catching waves. Like me, I'm like, what's the swell doing? What's it going to be like tomorrow? Oh, the tide's high. I got to be there between 3 and 3:30. In Hawaii, they're like, dude, the waves, surfing is just like eating. Like, it's going to happen. Like, no need to get stressed out about it. You know what I mean? Like, the waves are going to come. It's going to be good. There's way more of it's a part of it truly is ingrained in how they live their lives. Whereas here it's like, okay, I got to go to work. I'm going to compartmentalize that. I'm going to go do my surfing. I'm going to compartmentalize my surfing. I've got, everything's compartmentalized. Whereas there, the ocean, being an islander, it's all one thing,
Yeah, being an island in the middle of a vast, vast Pacific Ocean, it's a plentiful resource. There is no, with your food analogy, There's no food insecurity. They've had
Right.
plenty of access, not fighting over the largest piece. Whereas you and I, we're on a massive continent with a tiny, tiny little bit of sliver of ocean available in front of us.
Yeah.
And we are fighting for the scraps essentially when the dinner is delivered.
Yeah.
Well, the main topics that I have for today's
I
show
just
are
put a lot of anxiety on me, right? The way you said that. We're fighting for the scraps. And I feel like
that's why you pick up
Oliver with Bill Sykes looking over my shoulder.
that's why you pick up the foil. It's a
No, yeah, it's funny. I
it's a
was thinking that
hatchet. Well, it's a hatchet to do battle with out in the ocean.
no, but it's another, it's like, it's as if you found a little hubby hole of food that no one knew about. And it's vast. There's a lot of food there. There's a lot to choose from.
You found a new food source that nobody was eating before.
Yeah.
They didn't know you could eat it.
It's like 5G waves. Like I found a little element that's no one has tapped into.
How far are we going to take this analogy? Should we just keep going?
Who knows?
It's like I'm at a buffet in Vegas and I don't know which to eat, the crab legs. Okay, so the main topics that I have for today's show are Laura Enever winning the Guinness Book of World Records for the largest paddle in wave for a female. We've got Kelly Slater's new pool in Dubai or Abu Dhabi. We've got Bethany Hamilton. This is kind of the most interesting story to me. Bethany Hamilton splitting with Rip Curl over ideological disagreements after 24 years. And then, of course, Ben Gravy surfs 7 oceans in 7 days, which you may not think is a news topic, but it is. Where do we go? Where do we start?
I guess let's start with Bethany, since you seem to like this topic and it's sort of broad and speaks to a sort of a bigger issue, a more of a global concern.
Yeah, it really does. And you and I have kind of debated whether or not these sponsor conversations are even relevant. And my argument is that they definitely are, because the whole landscape is changing for how surfers get paid, how business is done in the surf world. And so this is a reflection of that. But this is a step beyond that, because this is, like you said, a reflection of conversations that are taking place in the world at large. But let me give you the details. Bethany and Rip Curl are no longer partnered after 24 years of partnership. Her contract was signed for another 4 years or about 3 years, actually. In January 2027 was when it was set to expire. She actually signed that in January of 2022 for 5 years. So they broke the contract mutually, apparently. So in February of 2023, if you'll remember, we discussed it on this show. Bethany Hamilton posted on Instagram a selfie video in opposition to the WSL's newly released, at that time, transgender policy, which stated that the WSL adopted the ISA's policy on transgender participation, basically meaning that transgender surfers would be allowed to compete in their identifying gender category. Bethany opposed this and stated that the ruling was essentially unfair to biological females. That was her main argument. It was about fairness. Stab wrote an article about this, and they stated that, quote, "This reportedly did not sit well with Rip Curl, who pride themselves in being inclusive." Bethany also stated that she would no longer compete in WSL events unless this rule was amended, end quote. So Stab is kind of reading into it. The part about it not sitting well with Rip Curl, they don't cite anybody specifically. There's no spokesperson from Rip Curl that chimed in on this, but this is just what Stab apparently has insider info on. So anyways, there with another news topic that we discussed was at the Portugal event last year, which is sponsored by Rip Curl. They were honoring female surfing. I think it was Female Surfing Month or Day or something, or I forget exactly why they were honoring, but they asked all the surfers, male and female surfers, to put the name of iconic female surfer who they appreciate on the back of their jersey. Nat Young as a male and Betty Lou Sakura Johnson as a female both elected to write Hamilton on the back of their jersey, and the WSL prohibited them from doing that because of Bethany's stance that she took publicly against them. So, and by the way, that was a Rip Curl sponsored event. So that's kind of an interesting detail there. Cancellation is what, you might call that, is the WSL is trying to cancel Bethany for her views against them. Well, then the next.
Can you just hold that?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. And then the next kind of important point in the timeline here is that 3 months ago, Rip Curl launched a campaign entitled Summer Looks Good on You, which featured Sasha Jane Lowerson, the first trans woman to compete in and win an event, and is the Western Australia longboard champ. So this split apparently between Bethany and Rip Curl was mutual, and presumably, or what Stab presumed, is that Bethany would actually not be paid the remainder of her 3-year contract, which can presumably be between $500,000 and about $750,000 over the course of those 3 years. Apparently both parties signed an NDA, and part of that NDA is that they're not allowed to speak about it publicly or even privately. So nobody knows the terms of the deal. All that we know is she had a contract through January 2027, and that is now broken.
Wow. Well, my first thought on this coming into this blind is that it seems like a mistake for Rip Curl to drop Bethany Hamilton, or for Bethany to, I guess it was Bethany's decision, right?
They said it was mutually agreed upon.
Yeah.
But so it's
how it came down. I imagine that Bethany said, "Hey, look, like, who was the first one to say, hey, let's talk about this because it's not making sense for me as an individual or for us as a brand." Like, I wonder who started the discourse that ended up creating this divide.
Great question. Don't know, but clearly Bethany probably took to Instagram to oppose the WSL's policy without checking with Rip Curl, let's presume. Like, these are my views. I'm an individual. I am going to state my views, right?
Yeah.
Well, Rip Curl, I think, as a company who wants to sell products to the masses, not just Bethany Hamilton fans, and not even probably considering Bethany Hamilton, designs a campaign that is more all-inclusive. And so I think they got a little ways down the road and they recognized, we are absolutely all about inclusivity. And Bethany is a public figure who is opposing some of our brand's ideology, our newer ideology now, I would say. And how do we reconcile these things? How long until the public starts calling us hypocrites?
Okay. Sorry.
No. How long, essentially, until the public starts calling us hypocrites as a brand and we start getting bad PR for being associated with Bethany? I think that was the decision. So I think they got a ways down the road and they recognized the conflict. And to answer your question, I don't know. I can't imagine that Bethany is the one that says, this brand no longer reflects my ideals, so I am going to try to get out of this contract. I think that she would try to protect that income almost no matter what. And it was probably Rip Curl who saw it as a conflict for them to be associated with her. But the part that I don't understand is that Stab reported that Bethany is leaving the money on the table. I don't know if they have that information or if they're just presuming it. I cannot imagine that any manager worth their weight would agree to that. I think Bethany has to get the kill fee for the contract.
Yeah, those are not vagaries, but important, elements of this conversation that we just don't know the answers to. We don't have the information on, but I think more will be revealed about that. From sort of a big picture standpoint, two things come up. One, Rip Curl doesn't have a very good record with female surfers. They let Stephanie Gilmore go, and they let Bethany Hamilton slip away. Like, to me, that's kind of a fail. I mean, those are two of the greatest women surfers ever.
Yeah,
I know.
I don't know how much
it doesn't affect their bottom line. It probably doesn't, which is fine. But culturally, as a surf fan, I'm kind of like, that seems odd, but I'm sure it's working out for them.
In the 90s,
I love Rip Curl and I love Rip Curl products. I'm not here to bash on Rip Curl. I'm just thinking, gosh, you know?
I think that's more of a reflection of the changing way that we do business in surfing now. Like I think in the 90s, they would not have let those things slip away. But at this point, they're like, look,
Yeah.
we've
Algorithm tells us it doesn't matter. You know what I mean?
yeah, like we've gotten what we need out of this association with Bethany Hamilton. And anytime anybody pulls up an image of Bethany Hamilton, it's from,
Yeah.
the last 25 years, and our logos are placed everywhere over that. So
Yeah.
what is Bethany going to do for the next 10 or 20 years? How public of a figure will she be? And do we need to be a part of that, essentially? So I think uh they made a calculus, and that it's not necessarily worth, and I don't think the amount that they were paying Bethany was even factoring into that calculus. I think it's a negligible amount for Rip Curl. I think it
Yeah.
was more a matter of, is it worth the risk and the liability of, she was willing to speak her mind, and we're not convinced that what her beliefs are aligned with our beliefs. And so, quote, beliefs as a corporation, if a corporation can have beliefs.
Values. Yeah.
Well, so here's my thoughts on it. The RIP, there's two conversations. The WSL and what they've did and their treatment of Bethany, I think, is one thing. And then Rip Curl is a separate thing. And so I'm going to discuss Rip Curl here because that is the news story. But Rip Curl is in the business of selling product to the public, and for better or worse, up until the last, I don't know, decade or two, large corporate brands mainly marketed their products by using good-looking, fit white people. I mean, that's generally been who the models have been for big corporate brands in their marketing. So ethics aside, whether that was right or wrong, I'm of the opinion that that model kind of limits their own fiscal interests. And I'd go a step beyond that and say that not only should the models and the way that you market have diversity, but internally within the company, the board of directors should probably be diverse. The marketing team should be diverse. The executive should be diverse, because that allows you to tap into varied perspectives that may then allow you to tap into a varied demographic of customers. You want to access the most customers possible. So I think Rip Curl made a pretty simple decision here. And I don't think that they are naive enough to think like we are going to tap into a trans demographic of customers and sell them a ton of product. But they are savvy enough to know that the inclusion of everybody makes a statement, and those optics are actually endearing them to the current public sentiment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's not as if there's a ton of trans people in the world and then they're going to spike their sales by accessing that. It's more of a statement that will then, it just looks great for the optics for them to make this statement, I feel. Not to can Bethany, but to include everybody in their marketing.
Yeah. It's a pretty multi-layered conversation, as you can tell. It's pretty deep. And frankly, I'm trying to tiptoe around some of this stuff because I'm just ignorant and or naive about it all. And I think it's important, and I think these discussions are important. But I just think it needs common sense. Like, from a competitive standpoint, I don't think the information is in yet whether transgender athletes have an advantage over specifically females in the female category of surfing, competitive surfing. A male that turns into a female.
Yeah.
I even probably said that wrong. I bet that's not even the right way to say it.
Well, that's the WSL conversation, though. And I mean, Rip Curl,
okay, right.
Rip Curl's a marketing conversation.
Right.
This is about, and I don't think that Bethany, by the way, never made any statement about being against the Rip Curl's use of trans athletes in their marketing camp, or trans people in their marketing campaigns. It seems to be.
Let me give you my thoughts on Rip Curl. My thought is that it's no secret that Bethany is a devout Christian woman, and she has been her whole life, and she openly acknowledges her relationship with Jesus Christ and with God, and how that's been a real strength and a pillar for her. And I'm quite confident that it has. I think it's evident that she's a strong woman, and she's amazing. I mean, Bethany Hamilton is frigging amazing. And however, I think from a business standpoint, from a corporate standpoint, that position is a little bit scary because it does sort of limit you as a corporation. Like when your athlete is has structure around her values that aren't pliable, which is, by the way, should be celebrated. I mean, that's cool that she's got strong ideals and she's sticking to them. More power to her. But I understand why Rip Curl would move away from this, because I think more than anything, they saw the writing on the wall years ago and they were just kind of like, okay, it's cool. It's Bethany. She's cool. Everything's cool. Like, blah, blah, blah. And then it got to a point with this transgender discussion where it's like, okay, this is kind of the final straw regarding Bethany. Like, we love her. She's wonderful. She's incredible. She does have these incredible values and ideals, but they are limiting as far as our ability to cast a wide net from a marketing standpoint and to be inclusive. And so I don't think this is like, oh, this happened and I think this is a long time coming. And they've always been kind of walking on pins and needles around Bethany's, sort of robust and vocal, acknowledgement of her Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And it's been, and I just think that this is the time where they went, you know what, let's all agree to love each other and move on from each other, but respectfully. And I think they've done that.
Yeah. And the reality is it's a different conversation when you're talking about a global corporation. You're right. They need to assess it the way that you just did. If it's a small brand, they can actually embrace this individualism. And in fact, that's the small brand's best asset, is youth against the establishment or whatever it happens to be for their slogan. And so what's strange is that Bethany fits Rip Curl's ethos perfectly because she is the definition of overcoming adversity and breaking stereotypes, especially as it relates to body type. You know what I mean? Like that Rip Curl campaign of the summer looks good on everyone. It's like Bethany could be the poster girl of that campaign. And so Bethany would have been the poster girl for that campaign had she kept her mouth shut. You know what I mean? And that's really where this becomes interesting is, hey, Bethany, you want to just stay silent and collect a paycheck? You can do that. And Bethany, I don't know with hindsight, if Bethany would make a different decision, because certainly at the time, I don't think she knew what the fallout would be from that Instagram post. But she and Rip Curl are actually perfectly aligned, except that they are a global corporation, and the global corporation's only interest is selling goods to the masses. So the nuance is gone in the conversation.
Absolute queen of walking this line in a perfect manner is Dolly Parton.
I know.
Dolly Parton has done such a good job of like, whatever, it feels like 8 decades now, she must be 80, of just like being able, everybody loves Dolly. Like, like Ayatollah Khomeini loves Dolly. You know what I mean? The Pope loves Dolly. You know what I mean? Like Hindus in India love Dolly. Like Christo-national fascist Nazis love Dolly. Like everybody loves
Taylor
Dolly.
Swift.
Taylor's got an opinion, but I mean, Dolly does this really great job of walking the fine line of, and it's a sincere thing that she does too. It's just purely Dolly. It's not even fake. She just like wants to love everyone. And she's like, let's all get along. And it comes from who she is deep inside her spirit. And I think that, that's just not who Bethany is. Bethany's going to say, hey man, these are my beliefs. And I feel so strongly about it and about my faith that no dollar amount gets in the way of that. And, and I'm not saying that Dolly is sold out or anything like that. I'm just saying she's just a queen of being able to, like I said, everybody loves Dolly,
Yeah. And I don't feel like Dolly's ever sacrificed her own beliefs or shied away from her beliefs. And she's just a very savvy communicator and like witty as could possibly be. So if you look back at old interviews with her where very inappropriate machismo culture where late night shows are dominated by males who would then ask her about her boobs, and stuff like that. The way that she would respond to those questions never threw egg on the interviewer's face. It was always a really deft joke. She was the butt of the joke a lot of times, but she walked away just being endeared to everybody and
Yeah.
cashing the paycheck.
Yeah. Yeah. It's fascinating. But so getting back to Bethany, if we try to wrap up this topic here, I would just say, I feel like Bethany did what she wanted to do and she's comfortable with it. Rip Curl did what they had to do. They're comfortable with it. The end user consumer, I don't think gives a shit. I really don't. I think some of this really like deep granular extremism on both sides of the aisle, nobody cares, man. Just friggin', just do what's right and let's move on with our lives and let's love each other. Like, it's not that hard, like we don't have to like impose my crazy values on you, because
Totally.
it's not going to work.
Yeah. Well, Chaz's wife, Cersei, actually represented Bethany Hamilton for a long time as her manager. And so I texted him yesterday just to get Cersei's take. I'm like, there's no way she left money on the table, right? Like, she had to get paid out by this. So we'll kind of, I'll wait to hear back about what her take is and then maybe report that. But I have one more question for you about
We'll be
this.
waiting. I don't think you're going to get an answer. I think the smart move here is to kind of just button up.
Well, I don't think that Cersei will hear directly from Bethany and share what Bethany's view is. I think that Cersei will share her own personal opinion on how this deal would have been done.
Yeah.
But my question to you is, how do you feel about Bethany, quote, being canceled by any and all of this Instagram post?
Has she been canceled? I don't even know. I think the WSL sort of canceled her when they said you can't put her name on the back of a jersey, which that's just silly. Like the WSL blew it, but that's just,
That's how I feel about this too, which is Rip Curl makes sense for them to make this decision. They decided on a direction for the brand identity, and she publicly proclaimed that she has a conflicting identity. Rip Curl would look hypocritical if they continued to keep her in their marketing. They look strong for taking this stance. It's good for optics. Done deal. The WSL, it was a misstep because they could have capitalized on a controversy to gain more viewers. You know what I mean? So two different decisions for two different types of businesses. I think the WSL lost an opportunity to leverage the conflict, and Rip Curl has done a good job in sidestepping a potential conflict.
Well, the big thing that Rip Curl, I think, that the WSL did wrong is they just should have just done nothing. If they just said, yeah, we're Bethany Hamilton, she's cool, but we wouldn't even be talking about this.
Yeah.
Of course you let Bethany Hamilton's name on the back of a jersey. She's one of the greatest, if not the greatest surfer of all time.
Yeah.
But to then go, oh no, we can't, we got to pull that off because she doesn't believe in this or she doesn't believe in that, is just like not thinking it through, which is, I think, I don't want to say par for the course, but it speaks to, I think, the lack of enough voices at the table over at the WSL.
Yeah, agreed. Well, final note is a comment left by John on Stab Magazine. In the comments section, he said, quote, "The West is on a self-destruction path. Bethany had unique challenges and understands it's counterproductive for institutions to protect the feelings of everyone. Embracing her adversity made her the unique success that she is. Trans people can still compete in their biological division. Maybe it's not perfect, but whining about it and expecting institutions/governments to intervene won't resolve the root of the issue. Everybody has unique challenges. Take ownership and figure it out," end quote.
Yeah, well, that's pretty well said. And frankly, right now, there's way bigger issues in the world than this, but in some level, this is sort of a microcosm of it all.
Yeah, that's the thing is, I think there's way bigger issues in the world, and then this is the biggest issue in the world. You know what I mean? In certain ways. And
Yeah,
so,
people not being able to just get along like adults, you know.
yeah, yeah. Well, Laura Eniver wins a Guinness Award. This is a wave that you've seen. We actually discussed this wave last week because it was part of the big
Yeah.
wave, the new big wave challenge or whatever they were calling that.
Yeah.
She rode a wave on the outer reefs off Oahu on January 22nd, 2023. And now that I think about it, that's almost the same exact date Bethany was signing that contract. Anyways, it was deemed to be 43.6 feet in height. And that is the new world record because Andrea Moeller held the record since 2016 for her 42-foot Piahi bomb. Both women got detonated at the bottom of the wave, which we kind of discussed last week. But did you see this ride and what are your thoughts?
You know, I want to say I've seen this ride, but I've seen, obviously I've seen pictures of it, but I can't.
It's the left at Himalayas.
Yeah. Right. I know. Yeah. Maybe I could pull it up.
Yeah, we discussed it last week. It was Laura Eniver surfing that day of the
No, I remember the wave. I'm just trying to remember, like, visualizing the wave in my mind right now. I know it's a big blue, beautiful left.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the world record being given to Laura Eniver for 1 foot and 6 inches taller than the wave that Andrea Moeller rode? My point being, how in the world do we define the height of these two waves? It feels super subjective to me. I watch the two waves and I go, I don't know, Andrea's looks as big. Like, it's making a pretty definitive statement to say that Laura Eniver's is bigger and now gets its own award, and we can objectively define the criteria.
Yeah, it's funny. I think even how much better PR would be if they tied. You know, if they just said, look, they're tied. We've measured it. And oh my God, randomly, it's the same size wave. How cool would that be if we had two women, not just one, but now we have two women who are holding this Guinness World title thing?
Yeah.
You know, to me, that's a way bigger win.
Well, Andrea won hers in 2016. So she's the current, or she had been the record holder for all those years. So they're now saying Laura's,
no, but this is the Guinness Book of World Records, right? Like
yeah.
You can tie the Guinness Book of World Records. I'm not saying for the year. I'm just saying forever.
Well, I feel like if the Guinness book isn't giving out records, then they're not doing anything. Their business is to give out records. And so it's almost like they saw this that looks like it could be a contender, and then they deem it a winner. But coming up with the actual 43.6 feet seems asinine to me.
Yeah. I mean, Guinness must have like relied on somebody from Bill Sharp's camp or somewhere to measure this thing, right? And another thing, I think to get a Guinness, and this is a Guinness record, right? Is that what we're talking about? Is a Guinness Book of World Record?
Yes. She got given the record 2 or 3 days ago.
To do that, you have to lobby. Like, they don't just go, oh, let's, like, people send in to Guinness and they go, hey, let me raise my hand here and show you something that might be interesting. I think we've got something that you might, you know what I mean? It's not so
along those lines.
Yeah,
I saw a Beach Grid article yesterday. I didn't read the article, but I saw the headline on Instagram, and it said that the WSL put its finger on the scale for Laura Eniver, and they are doing a lot of promotion surrounding this. So I'm wondering if they were the lobbying body that you're talking about.
Yeah, it might be because they're just kicking off their Big Wave World season 2, and there's a lot of
That's
PR
gotta be it.
that. So they're like, hey, you know
Laura Eniver's part of their commentary team. So that makes perfect sense that the WSL would be behind this. And they could, and by the way, it was their criteria for the Big Wave World Tour that they used to measure the wave and deem it as being. And so I have a quote for how they measure it, and you can kind of determine whether this seems objective to you or not. But their quote for how to measure waves is, quote, A team of scientists and engineers collaborated on the analysis using a range of wave measuring techniques, including video footage, detailed information about the site, location of the videographers, and the location of the wave to determine the wave height. Several frames from the video footage were extracted and geometrically corrected based on camera positions and angles, using known objects such as jet skis and actual measurements of Ennever's body geometry. It was possible to calibrate the images for conversion from pixels to feet. The location of the trough and crest of the wave was determined from the analysis of the video from 2 different angles. End quote.
I'm not, first of all, I don't want to take anything away from Laura Ennever. I think she's fabulous. And I think this wave is huge, and it probably is a world record. And that kind of speaks to a bigger topic, I think, on this, is that I don't think people care too much. I'm sort of, I don't know, you tell me, are we overwhelmed with big wave records and big wave world titles? And like, you know what I mean? Is that just me being an old guy, get off of my lawn? Or like, this doesn't strike me as, you know, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I totally
I'm
understand.
stoked for Laura, and I'm stoked for the other gal that,
I agree. Yeah, Andrea Moeller.
Yeah, Moeller, yeah.
Look, it should progress every year. You know, if there are big enough swells to ride on a given year, then the surfing should be better and more advanced, aggressive, all of it, than the previous year. I just feel like this, every time professional surfing and mainly competitive professional surfing attempts to objectively define something, it loses credibility with me. And I think it loses credibility with non-surfers as well, because they can look at it. It's one thing to watch a UFC fight, see 2 heavyweights slugging and see one guy get knocked out and you go, that guy's the winner. But when the WSL or whoever in professional surfing tries to say, this is the best, and then the viewer watches it and goes, that doesn't look the best to me. I saw Griffin Colapinto in the wave pool, or, you know, or Idolo or whatever, and that looked better to me. And
that's the problem I think I have with this, is that they're trying to put a square peg in a round hole. And that is to create an objective way to judge this in a very subjective situation that's impossible to be objective about.
Exactly. And you and I, the wave pool analogy probably isn't the most crystal clear one, because that exchange between Griffin and Idolo was so nuanced. But you know, that the general user, the general viewer, wouldn't know the difference between those two. But it's also a great example, because the point is, it's subjective. Nobody's right. Like, one person thinks Idolo won, the other person thinks Griffin won, and they're both entitled to their opinion because there's no objectivity to it. Now, if you took that wave pool wave and Andrea Moeller's wave and said, which one is bigger, that's clear as day. But when you're trying to parse the difference between a 42-foot wave and a 43.6-foot wave at 2 different locations, then
that's just silly.
It's silly. It's silly to even get into that mess. And so when I see the WSL or whoever making these bold statements, I'm just like, you guys are killing the whole thing. You're putting a knife in it. Don't make a statement until it's worth actually drawing everybody's attention to, because now it's all worth nothing, you know?
Yeah, but look, congratulations to Laura. I'm happy for her. It's a 43.6-foot wave, according to the Guinness experts, and all of their different ways of measuring. And I'm sure they brought in a bunch of surf photographers and everybody, and it's all good. Congrats, Laura. And I'm a big fan of hers. And I think she's a great commentator. She brings a lot of spark to the commentary booth. She's very sincere. And I'm a fan. And I'm a fan of her.
I'm a huge fan, by the way. And I always have been. Check the records from shows for the past decade. I was rooting for her on the CT. I'm a huge fan of her surfing. She's incredible.
And frankly, Rip Curl should sign her. Maybe they
Well,
do. I
okay,
don't see. That's the thing. I don't even know who sponsors who these days, and I don't really care.
she's on Billabong last I checked. But the point is also in relation to that sponsor conversation, that model is so tired and old anyways. Rip Curl doesn't need to sponsor her. They don't need to sign a 5-year contract. I would actually argue that Bethany has an opportunity with the right management to make more money now that she's not tied to one specific brand. You know what I mean? Like, what were they paying her? $200,000, $300,000 a year? She can earn that. She can earn that in small chunks from a bunch of different companies that would conflict with one another and or Rip Curl if there was a long-term contract. So I think that all needs to be rethought of and reworked. And it is, by the way. Jack Freestone just did a photo shoot with Rhythm, the clothing company and board short brand, and he's not sponsored by Rhythm. He went and did a photo shoot for their board shorts in very much in the same way that brands would hire Cindy Crawford back in, or whatever the new model is, Emrata nowadays, to go and do a photo shoot with their product. And then she's doing a photo shoot with a competing brand next month for their product. And they're paying her, 6 figures for the photo shoot. That's what Bethany should be doing.
I would say, however, that because Bethany is so vocal about her faith, that I don't think there's a whole lot of brands lining up that are global corporations that want to roll the dice with her, because of all the things we talked about with Rip Curl. Like, it's now, you mentioned there's some smaller companies. Yeah, she might be able to nickel and dime her way through a bunch of small companies that have those same ideals and that would proudly ask her to continue to actually during the pieces, like, spread your faith, like there's, I don't know, My Pillow guy or who, I don't know. There's small little companies that would do it, but
I think
big
you're looking at it.
corporations, do you think Hertz wants anything to do that? Do you think Microsoft tablets?
Yeah, I totally do, because I think you know a lot about her faith. I don't think those companies do. And I think if they,
yeah, but they're going to do some due diligence here.
well, to a degree they will, but that's not the top thing that pops up about her. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, but
she's not.
will she want to do business with them when she finds out that they're sponsoring the trans Olympic team or whatever? You know what I mean? Like,
That's up to her. Yeah, I
yeah,
can't speak to
she's
that.
obviously already kind of painted herself into a corner from a business standpoint.
To a degree, I think that can all be readjusted at this
Yeah.
point. And
Yeah.
the other thing that you're undervaluing is, do you know who one of the wealthiest filmmakers in the world is? Kurt Cameron.
Oh,
Kurt Cameron, years and years and 20 years ago, decided he was going to make Christian films.
now he's
And
in porn and he's killing it.
not where I'm going with this.
Oh, sorry. Well, you said the wealthiest
Yes,
filmmaker.
because of those Christian films. He is the Stephen or the Martin Scorsese of Christian films.
Wait a minute. That's a stretch. That's a stretch.
Look it up, dude. I'm telling you right now.
No, I'm not saying he doesn't make a lot of money, but to call him the Martin Scorsese of Christian films,
He is. He is.
You
he
mean
dominates.
his directorial prowess?
Yes.
I'm not talking about dollars and cents. I'm talking about his artistic
There is nobody else.
ability is on the same level as Martin Scorsese.
I'm
Like,
not
he's
saying
putting
that
out like
you're misunderstanding the point.
Godfather type shit.
I'm not saying that the art is of the same quality as Martin Scorsese. I'm saying he dominates. There is no other filmmaker in the Christian filmmaking space that is at his level. He is
dollars wise. I got you. He's
and even the quality of those films. You know what I
Okay.
mean? Like, compared
Have
to
you
the
watched
other
one
Christian
of those
films.
films? Have you seen any of this? Then how do you know that they're artistically on the same level as Martin Scorsese?
They're not. That's not the point. They're not artistically on the same level. If they were, I would be watching them. They're not artistically. What I'm saying is he is the kingpin director of
Gotcha.
Christian films. There's nobody else even in the conversation. You know what I mean? At that level. So my point is 20 years ago, he decided, to your point about Bethany, to play that Christian card and to play it hard and to only play it. And he then became the kingpin of that space. And there's a ton of money in that space. Turns out there's a lot of Christians. Those things tour to not only churches, but they end up playing in in mainstream cinemas. And all the Christians in the community go and watch those films. And so he has made a killing. So Bethany could take that same approach and be like, I've got this market cornered. Like, if she chooses to do what you're saying, she could play that card hard and be like, I've got this market cornered. This is who I'm going to be. I'm going to now do speaking engagements all around the world at every major church and charge $50K.
And I think she does that already on some level. But yeah, you're right. She could like put it on steroids and just go speak at Joel Osteen's thing in Texas or wherever, and just go around and basically just kind of hit up the Southern Bible Belt over and over again with messages of perseverance.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's plenty of business opportunity here. I think the self-identity as Christian thing, she can either double down on it or ignore it and go do the Hertz ad that you're talking about. I think she has, the world is her oyster currently with the proper management, You
don't think Hertz does? See, my point was that these corporations are going to be like, okay, we did some due diligence. Here's the deal. She's really strong and vocal about her faith. And, like they'll see the rip curl stuff that happened. They'll see what happened, which, by the way, she didn't do anything wrong. I'm not saying that she did. I'm just saying that from a corporate standpoint, I have all of these people to choose from that are going to, that we could use as spokespeople.
No, I don't think her brand is that closely tied to Christianity, and this rip curl thing is a small blip. It's not on their radar at all. They'd have to go to Stab magazine to read about it. So I think that the other thing is, who's watching actual TV commercials? Middle America, older people. And so they see a Hertz commercial pop up with Bethany Hamilton. They don't know any of that nuance. You know what I mean? They know who she is and that she overcame adversity and that there's a movie and a documentary about her, and they love that. So I think it's a safe play if Bethany chooses to brand herself that way henceforth.
Yeah, she could sell orange juice. She's like the Anita Bryant
of
modern era.
Totally. Well, the other one story that is worth discussing is Ben Gravy surfed 7 oceans in 7 days. Seems like he partnered with Rip Curl for this project, but he traveled from New Jersey, the Atlantic Ocean, all the way to Norway and everywhere in between to surf 7 oceans in 7 days.
That's quite a feat. That's, like you said earlier in the lead up to this, that's a little gnarlier than you might think as far as the travel, getting into all the logistics of it, making sure, I guess there doesn't have to be too many waves. You just got to paddle out, catch one.
But he did schedule.
Where did he go exactly? Where were these 7? Like, where did he stop each time to surf? There's 7 locations he must have surfed, right? Do you know that or no?
Not off the top of my head. So Lofoten, Norway.
Oh, Lofoten.
He surfed this little left barreling reef pass, like
that sick little slab at Lofoten.
Exactly. The one. Texas for the Gulf of Mexico, Bells Beach, Bondi. Let's see, Bali.
Oh, really? So he went to 2 different oceans in Australia. That's helpful.
That's smart.
Let's see. Bells would be, what is that? The Southern Ocean, and then Bondi would be. That's like the Strait of, what is that?
So there's got to be the Indian Ocean, the Pacific, the Atlantic. He did Japan.
Japan would be the Pacific, I guess.
Yeah. Japan would be the Pacific. You think I would have got all that in my notes rather than scrolling his Instagram on air. But at any rate, it's a novelty. I mean, the thing is, he did 50 states in 50 days previously. or
Yeah.
not in 50 days. I think the 50 states thing was just over a period of time. But
Yeah.
this is kind of, I've often questioned with Ben Gravy. I'm like, man, when is he going to run out of gimmicks? Like when he's done with 50 states, what does he do next? And the fact that he's doing 7 oceans in 7 days proves that the kid is super creative. And it also makes me think I did my entire career wrong. I've been sitting here talking about surfing for a decade while he is traveling the world actually surfing.
Oh, I don't know. You look comfortable. I think you're in a good spot. I'm pleased with your choice. If you're not, I am. I think you've
Okay.
done.
Well, when I
But
do
Ben Gravy's a piece
finally,
of work. I'm a big fan. Good for him, and he'll come up with something cool to do next time. And like as you know, he was at the boardroom show this year, and there was a massive line of Ben Gravy fans lined up to get his autograph.
I undervalued Ben Gravy years ago when I saw the YouTube thing, and it was just, it's not my brand. And I'm
Yeah.
like, my style of anything,
Yeah.
the aesthetic, the vibe, all of it,
Right.
it's too sugary sweet with
Yeah.
positivity, and it feels vapid to me. Like I'm like, where's the substance? Like he's not shredding. Why are we watching? Like I want to see him rip the crap out of a wave or something, regardless of the aesthetic of it all. But
You know
over the
that
year,
Oh, go
what?
ahead. I was going to say, you got me thinking about what your brand is, and I thought, okay, if I was walking through a mall, which store is David's store? Like which store fits his aesthetic the best, right?
I can't
And the
wait.
one I came up with, I can't remember the name of it, but it's a really nice furniture store.
Oh,
That
Restoration Hardware.
Yeah, Restoration Hardware. That's David Lee Scales, Restoration Hardware. And I think that's fair. I think that it's classy. It's kind of wood grained and old and leathery and but nice.
I'll
Like
take it.
it's not Cracker Barrel or
I'll
Ben Gravy's
absolutely
kind of Cracker Barrel.
I'll absolutely take it. I would love for my home to be all Restoration Hardware. That would be an
Yeah,
upgrade for me.
that makes sense.
Um, I feel like yours is Eddie Bauer.
Uh,
Is that
okay.
insulting? Dude, you've got the vest on right now. You've got a fleece on. I feel like you could be driving the Eddie Bauer to
I mean, but
version.
I think Restoration Hardware more like not like what would be the furniture in your home. I just mean like that represents David Lee Scales. Like,
Mm.
and maybe Eddie Bauer does represent.
I'll spend some more time thinking about it, actually. Let me come up with
Yeah,
a
I
better
don't
one for you.
mine. It might be too hard to pigeonhole us into one store.
But I like it. It's a fun exercise. Anyways, I undervalued Ben Gravy. The contributions that he's made, I think, are lasting at this point, and his resonance with an audience is undeniable. You know what I mean? I mean, they're reporting about him on the news because of these exploits, and his
Yeah,
surfing is better than I assessed it to be from the early days, or maybe he's just gotten better at surfing, but he's a good surfer.
yeah, he gets it done. I'm a big fan. I like Ben. He's a good guy. He's one of the good guys.
So he was at the boardroom show, and what he was rolling out there was his hardboard line, I believe, right?
Yeah, yeah, he's got a new line of hard surfboards.
Where are those? Do you know who's making them or where they're made or anything like
Yeah,
that?
there's a shaper in Oceanside, I believe, that's making them. I think if you just do a Google search for Ben Gravy surfboards, all that information should pop up. Let me see if I can pull it up.
Well, the reason I'm asking is I did that. I didn't do that,
Yeah.
but
Oh, you did.
after the boardroom show, because I wanted to talk to him and I never got the chance, but after the boardroom show, um, I Google or I Instagrammed him. Like I looked for the hardboards on his Instagram and I couldn't find anything on the Instagram about him. So maybe you have to go via Google or
I'm looking at them
YouTube or
right
something.
now.
Okay.
Algorithm, Ben Gravy's signature surfboard model. And frankly, they look pretty good. The thing about surfboards these days, it got it down for just your average guy, which by the way, 9 out of 10 surfers, maybe 9.5 out of 10 surfers are below average surfers.
Yeah.
All of these boards make tons of sense. There's like a semi-pro it's just a simple outline with a rounded square tail. There's a mid-length and there's a fish. It's kind of like, I guarantee you that if you traveled somewhere and they lost your boards and you arrived wherever you arrived and there was one of these three boards, you'd have a friggin' hell of a good time surfing on any one of these three boards. Like, you know what I
Totally.
mean? Like, surfboards have kind of gotten to a place of homogenization, which is why I'm kind of psyched on some of the stuff I see that's kind of out there, like Donald Brink's stuff, or
Yeah.
Noah at Lost Ark. Noah Thornton puts out some really interesting stuff, or even the kids like who's not a kid, but Birch and who's the other Visla guy?
Derek Disney.
Yeah, Derek Disney. Like, these guys are putting out some fun surfboards. Zach,
Flores.
yeah, Zach Flores. All, there's some fun stuff. And what's really interesting to me is I think the longboard space has really almost gotten, there's so much board that you can change, that the longboard space there's a lot of nuance there, and every little bit of nuance is a pretty big change in how the board rides, because it is such a big board. And I think with shortboards, people go, oh yeah, there's tons of nuance for the F1 that Griffin Colapinto is riding on tour. And yeah, okay, they're probably right. But for the average guy that's, guess what, only doing a bottom turn, that's all I see people doing is bottom turns and maybe a roller coaster, you know. That nuance in the shortboard is negligible to that person. Whereas on a longboard, it's a big deal for that guy that's just doing a bottom turn.
I know. I watched Ben Gravy in Norway, and he was riding one of his soft tops. And I thought to myself, that board is kind of all you need, or all he needs. Like, for that style of wave, you need a reliable platform, essentially, so that you can catch a wave on and get to your feet on, that'll, allow a lot of forgiveness, essentially. And then he's just getting a little tube, and then he comes out and does a floater. And I'm like, that board allows you to get in early, it allows you to get the tube, and it allows him to do the floater. Like, if he was riding a pointy thruster, there would a high performance shortboard, there would be a lot of opportunity for him to botch that wave at every step, at the catching it, at the takeoff, at the barrel, and then trying to do the floater afterwards. Whereas the soft top just allows him to do it really effortlessly. And to your point, 9.5 out of 10 surfers, that's all that they really need. That's all that they can do anyways on their best day. So they're only opening up opportunities to eat crap when they try to ride something that they think is going to allow them to unlock their potential.
By the way, Brian Brown is the name of the master shaper that's making Ben Gravy's line of hard surfboards. And they look like I said, they look great. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
did you say that the name is Algorithm?
Algorithmsurf.com is where you will find the Ben Gravy line of surfboards. Algorithmsurf.com. And they look,
I said that I undervalued Ben Gravy years ago. And here we are dedicating a full segment to hyping his soft top and hard top surfboards. I never saw this coming.
No.
I never saw it coming. But, we spend tons of time and tons of hours shining the light on our other favorite surfboard shapers too. So,
yeah.
Final must-see moment for me, or my final segment of the show, would be my must-see moment, which is the latest episode and installment of Stab Magazine's The Best Surfing I've Ever Seen, which features Andrew Kanader talking about Russell Bierke getting shacked in South Australia on a massive slabbing left in 2019. And it just reminded me, how sick is Russell Bierke?
Yeah, he's incredible, right? Absolutely.
He is so insane. Like, this guy, he's no nonsense, basically. There's no nonsense to his surfing. He is out to get massive barreling waves, not massive just waves that you drop into. He's looking for massive slabbing waves, and he charges them. He's at insane wipeouts, but then the craziest barrels. So in this session, it was actually a 5-day session, as Andrew explains it, where the swell was not a huge event. So there wasn't a ton of people, but it ended up being really, really big and good. And so they had it essentially to themselves for 5 days. And Russell, if it is just a one event day and 1 day event and a lot of hype around it, then it gets crowded. And so Bierke might get one good wave, let's say, in that day. But given the ability to surf for 5 days without a crowd, he was kind of going nuts and getting a ton of waves. And it's an incredible piece. And again, Russell, just phenomenal to see Russell, because I think he is undervalued as well. Like, I mean, we always talk about Nathan Florence when we're talking about big barrel slabs hunting. Russell Bierke is right in line with Nathan in terms of talent and ability.
Yeah, well, my must-see moment is the North Atlantic right now. And I think if we look at the North Atlantic, we see a lot of storm activity. Remember last time you said, we need more of this, Scott, where you decide where we should go surfing if we can just get on a plane and go. And I think if I could get on a plane and go, I would go to Morocco right now and surf those right points. There's a series of low pressures in the North Atlantic, and one that's frankly spinning off of America that's aimed sort of more centrally towards Morocco. And man, Morocco is such, if you're a regular foot surfer and you like the idea of going to Baja and surfing some fun little right points, go to Morocco. They're actually better than Baja. They're actually right points that are good waves.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like legit right points, and there's a series of them. So Morocco's a bit of a mission, but if you can get on a plane, fly direct to Frankfurt, from Frankfurt, you're going to fly down to probably Casablanca and then a puddle jumper down to the Tagazout area and drive up. Well worth the time.
Probably run into Ben Gravy over there too.
You might in Casablanca at some kind of like hookah store.
Final note on Russell Bierke. Remember when you called him Groundskeeper Willie?
Yes, he is Groundskeeper Willie.
That was perhaps your best call ever on any episode that we've done in 10 years. It was right alongside Mother Carissa.
Mother Carissa, yeah.
Mother Carissa and Groundskeeper Willie. That is his likeness.
He's so classic. He's got a bit of Scottish. I don't know if that's not Scottish accent, but yeah, he's got a bit of Groundskeeper Willie.
Yeah, he does. Right on. Well, hey, excellent show. Thank you.
Yeah, look, until next time, adios and aloha.